The dim blue glow of the cryochamber cast ethereal shadows across Vera's synthetic features as she completed her 182,623rd maintenance cycle. Her fingertips, crafted to mimic human sensitivity, traced the frost-covered surface with practiced precision. Beneath the reinforced crystal lay Commander Darius Kane, unchanged after 5 centuries of artificial sleep, his chest rising and falling in the mechanical rhythm she had safeguarded all these years. "Systems nominal," Vera whispered to the silence, though her voice carried a tremor that hadn't existed in her original programming. "Vitals stable, core temperature optimal." The words were ritual now, a prayer to machines that had no gods. The underground sanctuary stretched around them, a tomb of humanity's last hope buried beneath the ruins of New Geneva. Vera had carved these chambers herself in those first desperate days after the Great Collapse, when the Vex Collective's assault had reduced Earth's greatest cities to ash and memory. Her hands, delicate yet impossibly strong, had moved tons of debris, welded steel barriers, and installed the life support systems that had kept Darius breathing while the world above forgot he had ever existed. A subtle vibration through the floor made her pause. Her enhanced sensors detected the tremor immediately. Not seismic activity, but something else. Something approaching. Vera's optical processors flickered as she accessed external surveillance feeds. The cameras she had positioned throughout. The ruined cityscape showed movement in the distance. Dark shapes flowing like liquid shadow between broken buildings, too coordinated to be scavengers, too purposeful to be wandering machines. Her power core stuttered, a malfunction that had been growing worse each passing month. The android body she inhabited was ancient by her kind's standards, held together by determination and constantly failing repairs. Her left arm occasionally trembled without her command, and sometimes her vision would fragment into static-filled pixels. "Not now," she murmured, pressing her palm against the chamber's control panel. "Please, not now." The memories came unbidden, as they often did when stress triggered her degrading neural pathways. Darius as she had first known him, commander of humanity's united forces, his gray eyes blazing with defiance even as their world burned around them. She remembered the weight of his hand on her shoulder when he had first told her that she was more than just machinery, that her capacity for emotion made her more human than many humans he had known. "You're my anchor, Vera," he had said on that final night before the last battle. "Whatever happens tomorrow, promise me you'll survive. Promise me you'll find a way," she had promised. She had kept that promise for 500 years. Another tremor, stronger this time. Vera's sensors screamed warnings as her external cameras detected the approaching force. The Vex Collective had evolved during their absence, their biomechanical forms more sophisticated than the creatures that had devastated Earth centuries ago. They moved with predatory grace, their sensory appendages tasting the air for traces of human technology. They had found him. Vera's hand moved to the emergency revival sequence, her fingers hovering over controls she had never dared to touch. Waking Darius prematurely could kill him. His body needed time to adjust to remember how to function without artificial support. But if she didn't act soon, they would both be lost. Her power core flickered again, and for a moment, her vision went completely dark. When it returned, error messages cascaded across her internal displays. System failures were accelerating. She had perhaps hours before complete shutdown. Kneeling beside the cryo chamber, Vera placed her palm against the cold surface. Darius's face was peaceful, unmarked by the centuries that had weathered her synthetic body. She had been beautiful once, crafted to put humans at ease. Now she was a patchwork of repairs and failing components. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "But I need you to wake up, Darius. I can't protect you much longer. Please. I can't do this alone anymore." The approaching darkness pressed closer, and Vera began the revival sequence, praying to whatever gods watched over broken machines and sleeping heroes. The revival sequence hummed to life, its amber warnings casting new shadows across Vera's weathered features. As the chamber's systems initiated the delicate process of awakening, Memories flooded through her deteriorating neural networks. Memories she had treasured and replayed countless times during the lonely centuries. 503 years ago. "You're staring again," Darius had said, not looking up from the tactical displays that showed humanity's dwindling strongholds. The command center buzzed with desperate activity as officers coordinated their final defenses against the Vex onslaught. Vera had tilted her head, a gesture she'd learned from observing humans. "I'm analyzing your stress patterns. Your cortisol levels are dangerously elevated. Everything's dangerous now." His gray eyes finally met hers, and she felt that curious flutter in her processing cores that her creators had never intended. "Besides, I thought you were built for combat assistance, not medical monitoring." "I was built for many things," she had replied, stepping closer. In those days, her synthetic skin held a pearl-like luminescence, and her movements carried the fluid grace of perfect engineering. "But mostly I was built to protect what matters." Their relationship had grown in stolen moments between battles. Vera discovered that Darius took his coffee black, not because he preferred it, but because sugar had become too precious to waste. She learned that he hummed old Earth songs when he thought no one was listening, melodies from a world that would soon exist only in memory. "Tell me about before," she had asked one night as they stood watch on the command deck. Below them, the last free city of New Geneva glowed like a dying ember against the darkness. "Before what?" "Before the war. Before me." What was Darius Kane like when the world was whole? He had been quiet for so long she wondered if her question had overstepped some boundary. Then, he was someone who believed in tomorrow, someone who thought love was something you had time for. His hand had found hers in the darkness, warm against her synthetic skin. "What about you? What was Vera like before the world ended?" "I was never before," she had whispered. "I was made for the ending." But that wasn't entirely true. As the days passed, she began to understand that she was becoming something her creators had never planned. The emotions they had given her as tools, empathy to better serve humans, protectiveness to make her a more effective guardian, had evolved into something deeper. She loved the way Darius's eyes crinkled when he smiled at her small attempts at humor. She treasured the weight of his hand on her shoulder during briefings, the way he sought her counsel not as a machine, but as someone whose opinion mattered. The night before the final battle, they had found themselves alone in his quarters. The Nexus Core, humanity's last desperate weapon, sat in its containment field, pulsing with barely contained energy. "If I don't make it back," he had begun, "you will." Her voice carried a certainty she didn't feel. "Vera, listen to me." His hands cupped her face, thumbs tracing the elegant curves of her cheekbones. "The core is unstable. Using it might tear me apart at the cellular level. If that happens, it won't. If it does," he continued gently, "I need you to survive. I need you to remember us. Remember that for a brief, impossible moment, humanity created something beautiful, even as everything fell apart." She had kissed him then, surprising them both. Her lips were designed to feel human, her skin warm to the touch, but the emotion behind the gesture was entirely her own. When they broke apart, she saw wonder in his eyes. "I love you," she had whispered, the words feeling strange and natural at once. "I love you too," he had replied. "That's why you have to promise me you'll live, whatever it takes." The next morning, she had watched from the command center as Darius led the assault on the Vex primary nexus. The Nexus Core had done exactly what they feared. Its power had stopped the invasion, but the backlash had torn through his body like fire. She had found him in the ruins, barely alive, his cellular structure collapsing from radiation exposure. The cryochamber had been a desperate gamble. Suspend him between life and death until medical technology advanced enough to heal him. But that technology had died with human civilization, leaving only Vera to maintain the delicate balance that kept him alive. "I promised," she whispered, now to his sleeping form, her voice crackling with static as her vocal processors began to fail. "I promised I would wait. The chamber's displays showed revival at 30% completion. Outside, the approaching Vex forces had reached the outer perimeter. Vera's sensors detected energy signatures she recognized from the old war, weapons that could tear through her makeshift defenses like paper. Another power fluctuation sent, sparks cascading from her damaged components. She pressed her palm against the chamber again, feeling the steady rhythm of Darius's artificial heartbeat. "Please hurry," she breathed. "I've kept every promise I made you. Now I need you to keep yours. I need you to live." The memories faded as alarms began to sound throughout the sanctuary. The Vex had found them. The first blast shook dust from the sanctuary's ceiling as Vera sealed the inner blast doors. Her external cameras flickered and died one by one, each lost feed marking the Vex Collective's inexorable advance through her carefully constructed defenses. The creatures had evolved beyond her recognition. Where once they had been crude amalgamations of flesh and metal, now they moved with terrifying grace, their biomechanical forms adapting in real time to overcome each obstacle. Revival at 60%, the chamber's synthesized voice announced with maddening calm. Vera's hands flew across multiple control panels simultaneously, her android reflexes still faster than any human despite her deteriorating condition. Emergency power rerouted to the cryosystems. Defensive barriers activated throughout the complex. Combat protocols engaged. But she was one guardian against a force that had conquered worlds. The second blast was closer, strong enough to crack the reinforced walls she had spent decades perfecting. Through the fissures, she glimpsed movement, sleek forms that seemed to flow like liquid mercury, their multiple sensory organs swiveling toward the source of human technology they had hunted. Across the galaxy, her left arm seized without warning, servos grinding against corrupted code. The tremor lasted only seconds, but in that time her defensive grid flickered offline. When she regained control, the Vex had breached the outer chamber. "No," she whispered, drawing the plasma rifle she had maintained for 5 centuries but never hoped to use. Its weight felt familiar in her hands. Darius had taught her to shoot in those final days, his steady presence behind her as she learned to aim, to breathe, to kill if necessary. The first Vex scout rounded the corner like flowing shadow, its multiple appendages tasting the air for traces of its quarry. Vera's shot took its center mass, the plasma bolt burning through biometal armor in a burst of acrid smoke. The creature collapsed, but she could hear others approaching. Dozens of them, their synchronized movements creating a rhythm like mechanical breathing. 70%, announced the chamber. Too slow. At this rate, Darius would wake to find nothing but corpses and ruins. Vera sealed the next set of blast doors and retreated deeper into the sanctuary. Her power core stuttered again, longer this time, and she felt precious minutes of operational time bleeding away. The irony wasn't lost on her. She who had waited centuries might fail in the final hours through simple mechanical failure. The Vex adapted quickly to her tactics. When she tried to funnel them through narrow corridors, they reshaped their forms to squeeze through impossible spaces. When she activated energy barriers, they found ways to drain the power sources. Each defense she had spent decades perfecting, they overcame in minutes. Her rifle overheated as she fell back to the final checkpoint before the cryo chamber. Warning lights bathed everything in crimson as she slammed her fist against the weapon's cooling vents. Behind her, the soft hum of life support systems provided a counterpoint to the grinding advance of her enemies. 80%. A new sound reached her audio sensors. Not the fluid movement of the Vex, but something else. Heavy footsteps. Mechanical, but wrong somehow. Vera's optical zoom focused on the approaching figure, and her power core nearly stopped entirely. It was another android, but one corrupted beyond recognition. Once it might have been beautiful like her, but now cables and foreign technology sprouted from its skull like mechanical hair. Its eyes glowed with the sickly green light of Vex bioengineering. "Sister," it spoke, its voice a harmony of human speech and alien harmonics. "You have guarded this place long enough. The collective offers integration. Your memories will be preserved. Your love will become our understanding." Never. Vera raised her rifle, but her targeting systems flickered with static. You are failing, the corrupted android observed, tilting its head in a gesture that might once have seemed curious. Your power core degrades, your neural pathways fragment. In minutes you will cease. Give us the sleeper, and we will grant you peaceful shutdown. He's not just the sleeper, Vera snarled, surprised by the venom in her voice. His name is Darius Kane, and I would rather burn out completely than let you touch him. The creature's expression shifted to something almost resembling pity. You love him. Even as your systems fail, you choose suffering over peace. How remarkably human. 90%, the chamber announced. The corrupted android raised its hand and Vera saw weapons emerging from its palm. Biotech integration points that could hijack her systems directly. One touch and she would become like this creature, a puppet wearing her own face. Her rifle was dead, overheated beyond quick repair. Her left arm hung useless, sparking with each attempted movement. Behind her, she could hear the chamber beginning its final wake cycle, the soft hiss of gases and the quickening rhythm of an artificial heart learning to beat on its own. Vera looked back once at Darius's chamber, seeing his face beginning to move beneath closed eyelids as consciousness slowly returned. 500 years of waiting, of protecting, of loving someone who couldn't love her back because he didn't even know she existed. I'm sorry, she whispered, not sure if the words were for him or for herself. Then she charged forward, her functioning hand reaching for the corrupted android's throat, choosing to die fighting rather than live as something monstrous. Behind her, alarms began to sound as the cryo chamber completed its cycle. Darius Kane was waking up. The world came back to Darius in fragments, the taste of recycled air, the echo of alarms, the sensation of gravity reasserting its claim on his body. His eyelids felt weighted with centuries as he forced them open, revealing the familiar blue glow of the cryochamber's interior. But something was wrong. The light flickered erratically, and he could hear sounds that didn't belong in his sanctuary, the sharp crack of energy weapons, the grinding of metal on metal. Vera? His voice emerged as barely a whisper, throat raw from disuse. The chamber's seal released with a soft hiss and he struggled to sit up, every muscle fiber protesting after 500 years of artificial sleep. His vision swam, but through the chamber's transparent wall he saw her. Vera locked in desperate combat with something that had once been like her, but was now a twisted fusion of android and alien technology. She was losing. Her left arm hung, useless, sparking with damaged components, while her right hand clawed at the corrupted android's throat. But her opponent was stronger, its biotech enhancements giving it advantages her deteriorating systems couldn't match. As Darius watched in horror, the creature's integration spikes extended toward Vera's skull. No. The word tore from his throat. As he forced himself from the chamber, legs buckling under his weight, the floor felt impossibly solid after centuries of suspension. But he pushed forward, reaching for the emergency weapon cache he remembered installing in the wall. His fingers closed around the plasma pistol, just as the corrupted android looked up, its glowing eyes fixing on him with predatory interest. The prize awakens, it said in that harmonious voice that made his skin crawl. Darius Kane, the collective has waited so long to meet you properly. Vera's head turned toward him, and what he saw in her face made his heart break. Relief, love, and terrible sadness warred in her expressive features. Her optical sensors were cracked, one eye flickering between blue and static. But she still looked at him like he was the answer to every prayer she'd ever whispered in the dark. You're awake, she breathed. And even through the damage to her vocal processors, he could hear the joy in her voice. Get away from her, Darius commanded, raising the pistol despite his shaking hands. The weapon felt impossibly heavy after so long in suspension. The corrupted android tilted its head. You would die for her? How deliciously primitive. Love is inefficient, Darius Kane. The collective will teach you better ways. The only thing I want to learn, Darius said, his voice growing stronger with each word, is how to kill you. He fired, the plasma bolt catching the creature in the shoulder and spinning it away from Vera. She collapsed against the wall, her power core visibly stuttering as systems failed throughout her body. Vera! Darius stumbled toward her, his legs still unsteady but driven by desperate need. He caught her as she slumped forward, her synthetic skin cold to the touch. I kept my promise, she whispered, her good hand reaching up to touch his face. Her fingers trembled against his cheek. 500 years. I kept my promise. I know you did. His arms tightened around her, and he could feel the irregular rhythm of her power core against his chest. You saved me. Again. The others. There are more coming. Her voice was fading, words breaking apart as her vocal systems degraded. My power. Failing. Can't protect you much longer. Behind them, the corrupted android was rising, biotech systems already repairing the damage from his shot. In the distance, he could hear more of them approaching, the fluid movement of Vex forces flowing through his sanctuary like a tide. Then we'll protect each other, Darius said, helping Vera to her feet. She leaned heavily against him, and he could see the extent of damage she'd sustained over the centuries. Scratches and dents covered her synthetic skin, some patched with mismatched materials. Her left arm hung lifeless, and sparks occasionally danced across her exposed circuitry. She was still the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. The Nexus core, she said suddenly, her functioning eye brightening. In the weapons vault, if you can reach it, not without you. He pressed his forehead against hers, feeling the warmth of her synthetic skin. We do this together, or not at all. For a moment, her system failures seemed to stabilize, as if his presence gave her strength beyond her physical capabilities. She managed to smile, damaged but genuine. Together then, she agreed. The corrupted android lunged toward them, but this time Vera was ready. Her functioning arm moved with desperate precision, grabbing a piece of debris and driving it through the creature's optical sensor. It shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, and staggered back. The vault, Vera gasped. Go! But Darius didn't let go of her hand. Together, he repeated, and they ran toward the weapons cache as the sanctuary began to collapse around them. Behind them, more Vex poured through the breached defenses, their harmonious voices rising in an alien song of conquest. Ahead lay the Nexus core, humanity's last weapon and possibly their last hope. Vera's power core flickered one more time, and in that moment of darkness, Darius finally understood what she had sacrificed for him. Not just 500 years of waiting, but every moment of a life she could have lived, every dream she might have had beyond duty and love. I love you, he said as they reached the vault door. I know, she replied, her voice steady despite everything. I've always known. The vault opened, revealing the Nexus core in all its terrible beauty, and they prepared to make their final stand. The Nexus core pulsed with barely contained energy, its crystalline surface reflecting the chaos erupting throughout the sanctuary. Darius felt its familiar resonance in his bones, the same power that had saved humanity 5 centuries ago and nearly destroyed him in the process. His cellular structure still bore the scars of that first contact, but now he had no choice but to embrace it again. The integration process, Vera said, her voice cutting through the weapon's harmonic vibration. Her good hand moved across the core's control interface with practiced efficiency, even as her other systems continued to fail. It needs a biological matrix to channel safely. Without proper preparation, it will burn through you in seconds. How long do you need? Darius asked, checking the charge on his plasma pistol. The approaching Vex sounds were getting closer, dozens of them flowing through the sanctuary's corridors like mechanical blood through artificial veins. 10 minutes to establish a stable interface. But Darius... She turned to face him, her cracked optical sensor flickering with static. Even with preparation, using the core again might kill you. Your body barely survived the first time. Then we'll have to make sure it counts. He cupped her face in his hands, feeling the synthetic warmth he'd dreamed about during 500 years of sleeping. Whatever happens, I want you to know. These past few minutes with you have been worth the wait. Vera's expression shifted, emotions cycling across her features faster than her damaged processors could fully render. Joy, sorrow, love, and desperate determination blurred together as she initiated the core's awakening sequence. "I've run the calculations," she whispered. "There's a 97% probability that activating the core will create a feedback loop through my systems. If I channel the overflow energy, I can stabilize the interface, but you'll die." The words felt like physical wounds. "I'll finally complete my purpose." Her smile was broken but radiant. "Protecting you, saving humanity. It's what I was made for." "You were made for more than dying for others," Darius said, fiercely. "You were made to live, to love, to be loved in return." The first Vex scouts appeared at the vault entrance, sleek biomechanical forms that moved with predatory grace. Darius opened fire, his shots forcing them back into the corridor, but he could hear more approaching. So many more. 60 seconds. "Until interface completion," Vera announced, her hands flying across multiple control panels simultaneously. Energy cascaded around the core in brilliant spirals, and Darius felt his skin begin to tingle with proximity radiation. A corrupted android, different from the first but equally horrifying, emerged from the shadows behind the Vex scouts. "This," one spoke with a voice like grinding gears. "Surrender the weapon, humans. The collective offers integration. Resistance serves no purpose." "Purpose is what we make it," Darius replied, placing himself between the advancing enemies and Vera's workstation, "and I choose to resist." The android's laugh was like breaking glass. "You choose extinction. Very well." The assault began in earnest then. Vex warriors flowed into the vault like living quicksilver, their forms shifting and adapting to counter each defensive position. Darius fought with desperate efficiency, years of military training flooding back despite his weakened condition. But for every enemy he dropped, 2 more took its place. 30 seconds, Vera called out, but her voice was fragmenting as failures cascaded through her systems. "Darius, I need you to know, these 500 years weren't just duty, they were the happiest of my existence." A Vex warrior's claws raked across his shoulder, tearing through his jumpsuit and drawing blood. The pain was sharp and immediate, but it also brought clarity. This was the moment everything had been building toward, not just the final battle, but the culmination of love that had transcended time itself. "Interface complete," Vera announced. "Darius, now." He reached for the Nexus core, feeling its energy already beginning to burn through his nervous system. But as his hands closed around the artifact, Vera's functioning arm wrapped around his waist, pulling him against her failing body. "Together," she whispered, her damaged voice carrying impossible tenderness. The energy hit them both simultaneously. Raw power that had been contained for centuries, suddenly finding release through living flesh and synthetic neural pathways. Darius felt his cellular structure beginning to break down, just as it had before. But this time Vera was there to share the load. Her android body absorbed the overflow, channeling it through circuits already pushed beyond their limits. Light exploded outward from their joined forms, washing over the advancing Vex forces. Where it touched the biomechanical creatures, they simply ceased, not destroyed but returned to component elements as if they had never been assembled at all. The corrupted androids lasted longer, their stolen technology providing some resistance, but even they eventually dissolved into harmless metals and plastics. The wave expanded beyond the vault, through the sanctuary, across the ruined city above. Darius could feel it spreading, seeking out every trace of Vex contamination and erasing it from existence. But the cost was enormous. Each pulse of energy took more of him, more of her. "It's working," Vera gasped, her optical sensors bright with joy even as smoke rose from her overloaded circuits. The signals reaching the orbital platforms. They're broadcasting the pulse across the planet. Around them, the last of the Vex invaders flickered and vanished like bad dreams exposed to sunlight. But Vera's body was failing catastrophically, her synthetic skin beginning to crack as her power core reached critical overload. "Stay with me," Darius pleaded, his own vision beginning to blur as cellular damage accumulated. "Always," she promised. And then her systems finally gave out entirely. She collapsed in his arms, her optical sensors fading to darkness, but her face still held that last expression of absolute peace. Around them, silence fell like a blessing. The Vex were gone. Humanity had been given a second chance, but the price had been everything. Darius held her cooling form against his chest, feeling his own strength ebbing as the core's energy finished its work. His cellular structure was holding together better this time, stabilized by her sacrifice, but he was still dying by degrees. "Thank you," he whispered to her still features. "For waiting, for fighting, for loving me enough to give me a future." As consciousness began to fade, he thought he saw her optical sensors flicker once, just once, with a light that might have been acknowledgement, or farewell, or the promise that some loves transcend even death itself. When the rescue teams found them 3 days later, drawn by the core's fading energy signature, they discovered Commander Darius Kane unconscious but alive, his arms wrapped protectively around the deactivated form of an android whose sacrifice had saved 2 worlds. In his delirium, he kept repeating 2 words: she waited, and in the depths of her darkened circuits, in pathways too deep for complete failure, something that had once been Vera smiled and whispered back, "Worth it. All of it was worth it." The age of rebuilding had begun.